Hey there, good morning and welcome back to the garden. And despite what it looks like on this strange cloudy day, spring is here in full beautiful bloom, which means our garden looks a little bit something like this right now. Lots of dirt and lots of little baby plants in the ground. And I love this time of year. I love this little window because it feels very optimistic. It's very positive, it's very exciting. All those little plants that we put so much effort into growing and transplanting in no time at all are going to absolutely explode in size. And I hope that's what you're feeling right now. I hope as you embark on a new garden that you are feeling positive and excited and optimistic. But I know that if it is your first time getting started with this hobby of ours, it can also feel a little bit daunting and more than a little bit confusing. So today, I wanted to share 5 things that I really truly wish I had known all those years ago as we got started. We're not gonna talk about things like you should water your plants or you should put your plants in the sun, because I know you already know those. Instead, we're gonna talk about the things that I really truly wish that I had understood when I was putting together our first garden. Let's get started. Y'all, it took me an embarrassingly long time to realize this, but I did finally realize this. Gardening is not so much about the plants. And I really don't mean that to sound philosophical, and I know it can sound sort of wishy-washy. I mean it in a very practical sense. Gardening is not about the plants, it is about building up good dirt and dirt life. And again, if you've just started gardening, maybe that sounds kind of nebulous and even silly to you, so let me put it in a more practical way. If you gave me the choice between planting out the world's most beautiful, healthy seedlings, but putting them in mediocre dirt versus the option to plant out mediocre or even poor health seedlings, but putting them in beautiful dirt, I would choose that latter option every time, and I would come out ahead for having done so. Just like every other hobby out there that I've ever tried, and my wife can tell you that is far, far too many. Us gardeners suffer from gear acquisition syndrome. We want the best for our plants, right? Especially when we're getting started and we're very attached to those little baby plants we work so hard to grow. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there with a lot of products to sell us with the aim of helping us keep those plants healthy. And some of them work, don't get me wrong, some of them are absolutely valuable. But unfortunately, there are just a lot of silly little hacks and silly little nonsense products out there that won't actually help your garden at all. But if you pick a good spot for your garden this year and you spend the whole season trying to make that dirt as healthy as possible, you're going to be so much better off than someone who tries every little trick in the book. And I know because I have tried almost every one of those little tricks and they don't really work. I promise if you watch other videos on our channel, you're gonna realize that we are a very practical, pragmatic channel. We are not a particularly philosophically oriented gardening channel. This is all about growing lots and lots of food. But growing good dirt really is the key to growing a beautiful vegetable garden. So that's where I think you should put your focus, especially in year 1. I could not tell you why, but my chickens are currently sitting on the lawn and cooing. I don't think I've ever heard them make that noise before in their lives. Apparently they love this overcast weather. I don't know. Anyways, let's get back to the topic at hand, which is plant spacing. If you ask me, plant spacing is the absolute wild west of gardening. If you would like a good laugh, go ahead and fire up good old Google and type in plant spacing recommendations for whatever vegetable you are most excited to grow. And be prepared to laugh at the absolutely ridiculous variability in the answers you receive. You're gonna see everything from 6 inches to 4 feet. It doesn't matter what crop you are trying to grow, there's going to be a super wide array of results. And I know that for us, for so many years, as we were planting out based on these recommendations, I was so frustrated and confused at why there was so much unnecessary wasted space in our garden. But for a very long time, I just trusted that there was some rationale, there was some reason inherent to these recommendations, that they were ultimately correct. But the thing is, a lot of times they are not correct. They just really do truly end up in a big waste of space, especially if you are gardening in a smaller area, as so many of us have to do. Then one day I decided I'm gonna start trying to pay attention more to what the pros are doing, what the market gardeners are doing. And I started noticing that their plants were just absolutely smashed together, at least relatively speaking. But even though they were so close together and there was so much less wasted space, their plants were still really beautiful and healthy. And it got me to thinking, why is it that they are able to do that and grow plants close together super efficiently, but still in a very healthy, productive manner? But all of these guides for home gardeners are recommending that we space our plants out to this absolutely insane degree. And I realized there's no good reason. It simply is a better option to put your plants close together. So if you were trying to figure out how to space your plants, how densely to plant them together, first off, don't feel bad if you are confused. I am still very much confused on what the best options out there are. You just got to experiment a little bit. And two, consider erring on the side of closer together, or at least plant half of them closer together and half of them with more space. It has worked really, really well for us, and we now get so much more out of our garden than when we were following those more traditional guidelines that ended up with lots of walking space and not so many plants. I absolutely love direct seeding my plants, right? Just putting those seeds directly into the ground, covering them up, watering them, and walking away. It is very fast. It is very easy. It is very unfussy, uncomplicated. And I'm a very, very lazy person, so that fits my personality to a T. The problem is I basically never do that anymore because direct seeding is a very, very fickle. The germination rate is often pretty poor. The spacing can be all over the place. Little plants tend to get eaten. Trust me on that one. That is definitely true. Your soil needs to be pretty darn good to make sure that the roots are able to penetrate into that soil, especially when they're very small and just getting started. For a lot of reasons, direct seeding is a pretty fickle process, or at least it has been in my experience, which is why nowadays we basically never do it. The only crops that we still direct sow are things like beans and peas, and that's just because we grow hundreds of them at a time, and who has time to transplant all of those? Definitely not us. Over the last 3 years or so, we've really phased out our direct seeding processes, and I can sit here and look at you with a straight face and say, I very much wish we had done that so much earlier. Now, I totally get that if this is your first year gardening, it might sound kind of insane to plant all of your seeds in little trays and take care of them and also build a garden at the same time. And looking at those indoor seed starting setups can look a little bit like mad science. Maybe that's just me, but to me it looks a little bit like mad science. But I promise that it is much easier than it looks. So even if you feel a little bit intimidated by it, consider buying a single 72 cell seedling tray and trying it out at the same time that you are direct seeding in whatever garden you are putting together. For us, it is so much more enjoyable to garden in this way because we've taken out so much of that unpredictability, so much of that frustration that was inherent to direct seeding, and we've replaced it with a real joy, right? Planting out healthy seedlings and watching them thrive. I don't know if this one is true in other countries, but I can tell you with absolute certainty, in the United States, there is this very well-respected go-to list of vegetable varieties that everyone starts out growing. The problem with those go-to varieties is they are often much less productive and hardy and vigorous and long-lived and disease-resistant and pest-resistant and tasty and any other trait you can think of than many, many, many other varieties that are easily available even to the home gardener. And just to be clear here, I'm not talking about the war between hybrids versus heirloom, which I think is kind of silly. You should probably grow both hybrids and heirlooms. That's my opinion anyways. I am simply talking about, instead of going to the big box store and reading some descriptions and choosing the ones that have been around the longest and are the most popular, branching out, going to a website like MI Gardener or Johnny's and reading their seed descriptions, which are full of actionable, insightful information that will help you choose a variety of whatever vegetable you are growing that is really well matched to your climate and your palate and your needs. And I think it's also going to make your gardening experience a lot more fun. As As you can see here, our main garden is set up in lots of little neat-ish rows, kind of like a little miniature market garden farm style thing we've got going on here. And that's because our goal is high production. We want lots of food. We consider ourselves a little suburban homestead, right? But there was a time that was very much not the case. Not too long ago, I was absolutely infatuated with the idea of having a more wild, naturalistic, back to Eden, food forest style of garden. And don't get me wrong, I still think those are really, really compelling, beautiful gardens for other folks. But for us, when we tried to do it, we quickly found it simply didn't match our goals. We want high production, high turnover, high efficiency. We want to be able to institute a lot of experimentation, try lots of varieties, and those food forest gardens, they just weren't working for us. They didn't make sense for our goals. They didn't align with what we were trying to do. The reality is there are so many different styles of gardening out there, right? You've got your food forest, and you have your container gardens, and you have your square foot gardening, and you have your row gardens, and you have your market garden style, and you have bio-intensive and double dig and many others, and so many different permutations of all those gardens. And I'm sorry if I left out your favorite, but you get the idea. There are a lot of different styles of gardening out there that are well documented, well tested, and are effective for you to choose from. So the point of this isn't to say that you should go out there and eschew all of those other styles of garden and just build a row garden. It is to say, take a moment to really do your research on what options are out there and what have worked for other folks to make sure that all that effort you are putting in year one actually matches what you want to get out of that garden in year 2 and year 3 and so on and so forth. This is a long-term hobby, right? And the other piece of advice here is try not to get too sucked into the flavor of the month. There's always some trendy style of gardening. This is a very, very old hobby, and I'm not going to mention what I think is trendy at the moment because I don't want to offend anyone, but there's always some cool new type of garden out there, and there are always going to be a lot of folks who are strong believers in that particular type of garden who may tell you that that is the only option, that is what you need to go with. So try and take a step back, look at all those different options, and make sure that you aren't just choosing the one that is the most popular in the moment, and that you are choosing the one that is the right fit for you and what you want to get out of those plants. All right, y'all, that is it for our casual little video today. If it was helpful, if you did learn something, I would really appreciate it if you could give it a quick thumbs up. It makes all the difference for us, really helps us out. Thank you so much. As always, thank you for watching this video. I hope to see you on the next one, and until then, happy gardening, y'all.